The camera opens with a wide shot of an African city at dawn. The streets are still silent, shrouded in a thin mist that seems to hide ancient secrets. The soft sound of the wind echoes as the narration begins. In a place where past and present dance together, where every corner holds stories of struggle and rebirth, something extraordinary was about to happen. The camera moves slowly, revealing small details. A vendor setting up his stall, children running barefoot, and, in the center of the scene, a young man sitting on a park bench, watching everything with attentive eyes. The young man is discreet, almost invisible. He wears simple, time-worn clothes, but there is something in his posture that draws attention. He does not seem to belong to the crowd, although he blends in easily. His face reflects a mixture of curiosity and seriousness, as if he carries a greater weight than his age suggests. The narration continues. He was just one of many, or so it seemed. But sometimes the greatest heroes are those who choose to remain in the shadows until the right moment. As the day progresses, the city comes to life. Cars honk, voices mingle, and everyday chaos takes over. The young man stands and walks through the busy streets, observing the people around him. His expression is neutral, but his eyes shine with quiet determination. He stops in front of an imposing building where a flag flutters in the wind. No one knew who he was at that moment, the narration says, but his actions would forever change the way we view power, respect, and dignity. The camera closes, in on a close-up of the young man's face as he takes a deep breath before entering the building. There is a moment of suspense, as if the viewer can feel the weight of what is to come. This is the beginning of a story that transcends borders and generations, the narration concludes, leaving the air charged with anticipation. The next chapter of this journey is about to be revealed. Inside the building, the young man walks through wide, well-lit hallways, where the sound of his footsteps echoes as a reminder of his discreet presence. He is watched by curious and indifferent glances, but nothing seems to disturb him. Finally, he enters a room full of important people, politicians, businessmen, and journalists, all dressed in impeccable attire. The camera focuses on the contrast between the young man and the others. While they display confidence and arrogance, he remains humble, almost invisible. A man stands out in the crowd. He is tall, well-dressed, and carries with him an air of superiority. He is a commissioner known for his authoritarian and prejudiced behavior. When he notices the young man's presence, he frowns and approaches with a sarcastic smile. "Who is this boy? What are you doing here?" he asks, raising his voice to get the attention of the others. The young man does not answer immediately, just keeps his gaze fixed, which irritates the commissioner even more. The tone of the interaction intensifies when the commissioner begins to ridicule him. "You shouldn't be here, boy. This is a place for important people, not for beggars or hopeless dreamers," he says, laughing as some around him join in his laughter. The young man lowers his head for a brief moment, as if feeling the weight of the words, but soon raises his face again, revealing an expression of calm determination. The narration enters softly. They didn't know they were challenging something greater than their own vanity. The tension grows when the young man decides to speak. His voice is low but full of strength. "I didn't come here to prove my worth to you," he says, looking the commissioner straight in the eye. "I came because I believe everyone deserves to be heard, regardless of who they are." The commissioner hesitates for a moment, surprised by the unexpected answer, but quickly disguises his reaction with a nervous laugh. "What courage!" he exclaims ironically, before turning his back and leaving the young man alone in the center of the room, surrounded by curious and judgmental gazes. The silence in the room is broken by steady, coordinated footsteps. All eyes turn to the entrance, where a group of men and women dressed in military uniforms enter in impeccable formation. They carry with them an aura of authority and respect that makes even the commissioner take a few steps back. The camera focuses on the young man's face, which remains impassive, as if he already knew what was coming. The leader of the group, a high-ranking officer, walks directly towards the young man and bows respectfully. "Mr. President," he says, raising his voice so that everyone can hear. The shock is instantaneous. Those present freeze, their faces reflecting disbelief and fear. The commissioner, who moments before had ridiculed the young man, turns pale, his hands shaking as he tries to process what he has just heard. The voiceover enters. The true identity of the young man was something that no one expected, but that would change everything. The young man, now revealed as Ibrahim Traoré, the president, shows no anger or revenge. He simply looks around the room, noting the expressions of shock and regret on the faces of those who have disrespected him. His demeanor is calm, almost fatherly, as if he is standing before children who need to be taught an important lesson. "Power is not in the clothes we wear or the titles we carry," he says, his voice echoing through the room. "It is in how we treat each other, especially those we consider different from us." The commissioner tries to approach, stammering an apology, but the president holds up his hand, silencing him. "It is not me you should be asking for forgiveness from," he says, pointing to the ordinary people who work in the building, the security guards, the administrative staff, the unseen workers who keep everything running. It is them who carry the weight of the world on their shoulders, while you hide behind your desks and privileges. The scene is interrupted by a long silence, as the weight of the president's words falls upon everyone present. The camera closes in on the commissioner, tears streaming down his face. He falls to his knees, defeated by the magnitude of the mistake he has made. In the background, the soldiers stand motionless, silent guardians of the justice that has just been restored. The voiceover concludes, "In this moment, the true meaning of dignity was revealed, and no one would ever forget the lesson they had learned." The room falls silent as the president slowly walks to the window, looking out over the city. The sun is now high in the sky, illuminating the busy streets and the people going about their daily lives. He sighs deeply, as if he carries the weight of an entire nation on his shoulders, but also as if he sees a better future on the horizon. The voiceover softly enters. True power is not wielded with clenched fists or harsh words, but with actions that inspire change. The president turns to face the audience once more. His eyes reflect compassion, but also firmness. "Today, you have had the chance to see what really matters," he says, his calm voice echoing around the room. "It is not titles that define who we are, but our choices, and choosing to respect one another, regardless of our position, is the first step towards building a just society." He pauses, allowing his words to sink in. The camera pans over the faces of those present, some embarrassed, some thoughtful, but all impacted. As the president leaves the room, accompanied by his escort, the camera follows him outside the building. There he finds a group of children playing on the steps. One of them, a small boy in shabby clothes, hands him a hand-drawn drawing. It is a simple image, but it is full of meaning. A tree with deep roots and tall branches, representing the connection between the past and the future. The president smiles as he accepts the gift, touched by the innocence and purity of the child. "This is the true rebirth of Africa," he says, holding the drawing tenderly. The final scene shows the president walking through the city streets, now without his escort, mingling once again with the common people. He disappears into the crowd, leaving behind only the memory of his words and actions. The narration concludes, "In the hands of the humble and the forgotten lies the power to change the world." And those who have learned the lesson of this day will never again underestimate the worth of a human being. The camera closes with a wide shot of the city, where the flag flutters in the wind, symbolizing hope and renewal. After leaving the building, the president walks through the busy streets where the rhythm of everyday life continues unabated. He stops in front of a small square where children play carefreely. One of them, a boy of about 8 with curious eyes, watches him for a few moments before running up to him. "Are you the man on television?" the boy asks, holding a worn-out ball in his hands. The president smiles and crouches down to the child's. The boy tilts his head thoughtfully. "People say you can fix anything," he says, his eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and doubt. "But how can you fix something so big by yourself?" The president looks at the boy for a moment, touched by the sincerity of the question. "I can't do it alone," he admits, "but every person, no matter how small, has the power to change something around them. When everyone works together, even the most difficult problems can be solved." He pauses, looking at the other children who now surround them, curious. "Have you ever heard of the trees that grow in the desert?" the president asks, pointing to a small sapling planted in the square. The boy shakes his head. "In the desert, trees have to fight hard to grow. But when they do, they bring shade and life to everyone around them. Each of us can be like that tree. Even when facing difficulties, we can bring hope to others." The boy looks at the sapling, then back at the president, as if trying to understand the depth of the words. Finally, the boy smiles and hands the ball to the president. "Then I'll be a tree," he says, determined, "and I'll help you fix everything." The president laughs softly, touched by the child's innocence and strength. "You've already started," he replies, lovingly ruffling the boy's hair. The camera slowly zooms out, showing the president sitting in the square, surrounded by children who are now laughing and playing around him. The voiceover begins, "In the words of a child, we find the purest truth. Rebirth begins with small seeds of hope." As dusk falls, the president walks to a high point in the city, a lookout point where he can see the vast horizon. The sky is painted in vibrant shades of orange and purple, reflecting on the river that cuts through the cityscape. He sits on a simple wooden bench, looking into the distance as the soft sound of the wind fills the silence. The voiceover begins. "Even the strongest leaders need moments of stillness, where the voices of the world are silenced and the deepest truths come to the surface." He takes out the drawing the child had given him earlier and looks at it closely. The hand-drawn tree seems simple, but he sees something greater in it, a representation of a resilient people with roots deep in history and branches reaching out to touch the future. His eyes fill with tears, not of sadness, but of deep emotion, a mixture of gratitude and responsibility. The weight of power lies not in dominating, but in serving, he says softly, as if speaking to himself. And sometimes it is in the hands of children that we find the courage to carry on. The camera focuses on subtle details. The slight tremor in his hands as he holds the drawing, the wet gleam in his eyes, the way he takes a deep breath to regain his composure. He closes his eyes for a moment, allowing himself to feel everything he carries inside. When he opens them again, there is a new determination in his gaze. "I am not perfect," he murmurs, "but as long as there are people willing to dream, I will be here to help them build those dreams." The sun finally sets, plunging the scene into a peaceful twilight. The president stands, carefully tucking the drawing into the inside pocket of his coat. He looks once more at the city below, now illuminated by the first lights of evening. "The Renaissance of Africa is not the work of one man," he says, his steady voice echoing in the silence. "It is the work of millions, each planting his seed in the soil of hope." The camera follows him as he begins to walk back, his steps slow but determined toward the future that is still being written. Back on the city streets, the night is now alive with the sounds of music, laughter, and conversation. The president walks unescorted, blending into the crowd like a regular citizen. He stops in front of a small square where a group of young people have gathered around a makeshift stage. One young man holds a microphone, reciting poetry about struggle, hope, and rebirth. The camera pans to the faces of the people around him. Some sing along, others applaud, but all are connected by something greater than themselves. The voiceover enters. In art, in music, in simple words, we find the strength that unites a people. The president watches silently, moved by the collective energy pulsing through the air. When the poet finishes his recitation, he slowly approaches, drawing the attention of the young people. "These words are powerful," he says, smiling. "They have the power to change hearts and minds." The young people recognize him and are momentarily paralyzed, but they soon relax when they realize that he is not there as an authoritarian figure, but as someone who shares the same dream. "We are the storytellers of this generation," he continues, "and it is through these stories that we will build the future." Inspired by the president's presence, the young people begin to share their own stories. One young woman tells of how she founded a community school to teach children in rural areas. Another tells of her reforestation project, which has already planted thousands of trees in dry lands. Each story is a reminder that even in the midst of hardship, there are people willing to work for the common good. The president listens attentively, nodding and smiling as discreet tears stream down his face. "You are proof that the rebirth has already begun," he says, his voice choked with emotion. The scene culminates with everyone present forming a circle, holding each other's hands. They sing together a traditional song whose lyrics speak of unity, respect, and hope. The president closes his eyes, enveloped in the energy of the moment. The narration concludes, "When a people unites, there is no barrier that cannot be overcome." And tonight, under the stars of Africa, the future shone brighter than ever. The camera opens with a wide shot of the city at night, where the lights of the houses and streets form a mosaic of life and movement. The president walks alone down a quiet street, his footsteps echoing softly in the silence of the early morning. He stops in front of an ancient tree, its branches rising majestically against the starry sky. The narration enters, calm and reflective. There is something deeply symbolic about a tree. Its roots reach into the past, while its branches reach into the future. This is the rebirth of a people. He touches the trunk of the tree tenderly, as if he can feel the history contained within. His thoughts travel to the moments lived throughout the day, the disrespect he faced in the boardroom, the purity in the child's words, the collective energy of the young people in the square. Each moment was a lesson, a reminder that true power lies in human connection. Respect is not something that is imposed, he says softly, his voice almost lost in the wind. It is something that is cultivated, like a seed that needs care and patience to blossom. The camera closes in on a close-up of his face, illuminated by the soft light of the moon. There is a slight smile on his lips, but also a seriousness that reflects the weight of his mission. He takes the drawing out of his pocket once more, looking at it as if it were a map for the future. The Renaissance of Africa is not just about rebuilding what was destroyed, he says, his steady voice echoing in the night. It is about creating something new, something that honors our ancestors while paving the way for the generations to come. He puts the drawing away again, as if guarding a treasure. Finally, the president turns and walks off into the distance, his figure gradually disappearing into the darkness. The camera remains focused on the tree, now illuminated by the first rays of sunlight breaking over the horizon. The narration concludes, in every choice made with dignity, in every act of respect, a new seed is planted, and from these seeds will sprout a future where all can walk side by side as equals. The screen slowly fades to black, leaving only a sentence written in simple letters. Rebirth begins with you.